Hello everyone and welcome back to Cookbook Chronicles. Today we are working on the recipe roasted cauliflower with bone marrow, kumquats, and kale. Within the book, it is under the appetizer section, which I find kind of amazing since it's a pretty big portion that they show in the book, so I went ahead and made it into an entree. But reading the recipe, they also state that it is a great vegetable-centric main course that's hearty enough to please any meat eater, which I find completely true. I started off by melting the bone marrow in butter, and once it is fully melted, we're going to go ahead and add in the sliced garlic. We're going to want to get this garlic nice and crispy. Make sure you don't take it very far when you're trying to crisp it up. Once you get garlic like either burnt or too dark color, it just tastes extremely bitter. Once you have all the sliced garlic removed, go ahead and grab your torn bread and add it to the pan where you're browning your garlic. While toasting the bread, you want to make sure that you don't have too much fat in the pan. I made this same mistake and it cost me in the end. You'll see towards the end of the video as I'm plating. But when you toast it, you're going to get this really golden brown and crispy. And honestly, they just taste fantastic. And I'd recommend using this as croutons in a salad. As the bread is crisping up in the fat, to the right, I have a pot of boiling water getting ready so I could go ahead and blanch my kale. I blanch the kale for roughly 30 to 45 seconds, then remove it from the boiling water and put it into a bowl. If you plan on making this sauce later, I'd highly recommend having an ice bath and submerging the kale into the ice bath to retain the bright green color. Now that the kale is nice and blanched, I go ahead and go over to my pan with the breadcrumbs, and you could see it's beautifully golden brown and crispy. Once I finally have all the breadcrumbs removed from the pan, I return back to my pot of boiling water, add a little bit of salt to it this time, and then put the cauliflower chunks in there. These get cooked for about 1 minute to 2 minutes. You don't want them to cook all the way through because we are going to put them back in that same roasting pan with more of the butter and bone marrow later. After I've removed the cauliflower from the pot, I pulled out my food processor and added the breadcrumbs to the food processor to get them nice and fine. As you can see, it's a little oily, and again, I added too much oil to the breadcrumbs. I guess I could have added more breadcrumbs, but I didn't, and this is kind of the result. You still have your crispy breadcrumbs, but they're just a little too oily. Once you have all your breadcrumbs in this bowl, take those garlic chips or crispy garlic pieces that we fried up and add them to this bowl right here. And this is going to be one of the garnishes for your cauliflower. Then next, wash out your bowl and add the chilled kale. I should mention that you should have your bone marrow and butter mixture warm, so it is easily poured into the top of the food processor so you can process the kale. You'll want to get this puree nice and smooth, and this is the first look after blending it. Not quite there yet. We're going to put the lid back on, add a little bit more of that butter and bone marrow, blend it a little bit more, and there you go. You have this beautiful bright green kale puree. I make another rookie mistake with the puree, and I held it in this room temperature bowl, and currently it's pretty cold in the house, So what ends up happening during the plate up is kind of upsetting, but you'll see that in a few moments. But right now, the texture of that puree is fantastic. But as that puree is done and off to the side, let's go ahead and grab our cast iron, add more of that bone marrow and butter to the cast iron pan, and let's start searing off our cauliflower. I could have added a little bit more fat to the pan, but I wanted to test out the shallow fry and see if that was going to be enough, because I could have sworn that there was going to be more than enough of the marrow and butter to baste, but there wasn't, so I kind of just made with do. We're going to continue to roast these cauliflowers in the oven, so make sure you have it preheated to 350 degrees. While it's roasting in the oven, you're going to want to check it every maybe 4 to 5 minutes to test to see if it's done. And it took about 8 minutes total to cook the cauliflower this way. Finally, we're going to begin plating, and I would highly recommend to keep your kale puree in a warm spot so it spreads easily and you don't make this rookie move. As you can see here, it's very difficult to plate a chilled bone marrow puree. As I'm plating the dish, I'm going to take the opportunity to ask you to like and subscribe if you've enjoyed the video. It helps me out, and I'm trying to grow the channel a little bit, so those analytics and all that good YouTube jargon would just help tremendously, and I'd really appreciate it. Overall, the recipe was really good. I just made a lot of different mistakes, and it kind of cost me, but I would make this dish over again, and it was yet another delicious recipe from Rich Table, the cookbook. Next week is going to be the final recipe from the Rich Table cookbook, and it is going to be a pasta. So hope you stick around and come watch it then.